tell a story of two frogs. And we actually have a sweet little book in the bookstore about this as well. So today's theme, part of it, is on willpower. So this seemed to be a very appropriate song. There were two frogs went hopping out one day to see what they could see. Oh, now one of them was big and strong, they say, the other one was wee. Oh, as they hopped about so merrily, they came upon a mystery. Something shiny, bright, and high and round. What luck was this they'd found? They thought they'd never rest again until the mystery was clear. Oh, as things so round and high and shiny will, it tempted them too near. Oh, for they jumped up in a soaring ark, as though each frog had been a lark. And they dropped in something smooth as silk, it was a pail of milk. Just give a thought, I'm sure you will agree, theirs was a sorry plight. Oh, the bucket's sides were smooth and steep, and gee, their jumping power was slight. Oh, though they tried and tried to leap back out, a frog's a frog, he's not a trout. On dry land he'll hop and hop at whim, in milk he has to swim. Well, so they swam and swam and swam, poor things, they'd nothing else to do. Oh, God gave them legs, but not a hint of wings, soon both were turning blue. Oh, then the big frog gasped and cried, I can't, my legs won't move, I can hardly punt. What's the use of trying, we'll never win, the big frog thus gave in. But now the little frog swam harder still, the milk churned with his feet. Oh, he thought, though tired, I'd rather use my will than be a lump of meat. Oh, suddenly, as strength was failing him, a large lump touched him on a limb. Firm at last upon this butter mound, he hopped out to the ground.
Our readings are taken from Rays of the One Light, weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. This week, reason versus intuition. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Jesus, when addressing his critics, appealed to reason and common sense. In his training of the disciples, however, he, like all great masters, encouraged in them the development of a higher faculty, soul intuition. For it is only by intuition that spiritual perceptions are achieved. In chapter 16 of the Gospel of St. Matthew, we find Jesus drawing on the intuition of his disciples by asking them who they thought he was in reality. They immediately understood that what he wanted from them was a subtle answer, not some obvious reply based on his nationality, sex, or the like. Peter it was at last who understood and answered the question on its intended level, the spiritual. Thou art the Christ, he said, the Son of the living God. And Jesus turned to him, saying, Blessed art thou, Simon, son of Jonah, for not by human nature was this truth revealed to thee, but by my heavenly Father. And I tell thee this also, thou art Peter, which is to say, a rock, and upon this rock will I build my church, and never will the powers of darkness overwhelm it. Jesus was pleased with his disciple for relating to the question on its deepest level. Reason could not have given Peter that answer. The answer came through the faculty of soul intuition and proved him thereby to be a spiritually advanced disciple. It was his intuitive perception, that insight which cannot be shaken by tempests of reasonable doubt, that Jesus praised in referring to him as a rock. The church he referred to next was the edifice of cosmic consciousness. Any outer church institution would have to depend, as in fact the Christian churches have always done, on the level of understanding of its individual leaders and members. Peter's intuitive perceptions could never have been passed on to an outward succession of prelates. Clarity comes by direct soul perception. Confusion results from excessive dependence on reason as the guide to understanding. As the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, when your intellect, at present confused by the diversity of teaching in the scriptures, becomes steadfast in the ecstasy of deep meditation, then you will achieve final union with God. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
How is everyone today? Yay. Well, thank you all for coming today and joining us. I feel silly walking up here with notes, given our topic is reason versus intuition, but there you are. Let's begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. This is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems, and this is number 60. I will broadcast my voice with the chorus of thy songs. With the soft finger touches of my soul intuition, I tune the radio of my inner perception. At first, I caught only the sounds of nearby experience. Then came a symphony of inner harmony, followed by sweet strains from my heart's orchestra of finer feelings. And then came the swelling chorus of my age-long cravings for thee. All these I caught on the radio of my soul as I kept tuning my perception, waiting to catch the whispers of thy voice, O guardian angel of all souls. With infinite patience, I went on tuning my radio. At last, when I was almost prepared to give up further trying, thy song burst upon my heart. Oh, let me broadcast through my every word now the chorus of thy songs. Om, peace, amen. So our topic this week is reason versus intuition. And we were joking a little on this topic as right before we came down, and someone said, well, what is the reason for intuition? And we've been talking these last several weeks around this topic. 2 weeks ago, we talked about by thinking, can we arrive at understanding? And the joke with that, of course, is what do you think? And the counter was devotion, right? Last week it was dogmatism versus common sense, not defining, not limiting, not, how would I say, separating or whatever, from others, from our own selves, our thoughts, that kind of thing. And the quality associated with it was forgiveness. Because forgiveness, it's all in the heart. When we feel that we're being judged or compared or whatever, the forgiveness is so important because it keeps the heart open. So here we had talked about devotion and then forgiveness. And this week again, reason versus intuition. And it's not a versus can feel like it's against, right? Or either or. And it's not about throwing out the mind or the intellect or this reasoning faculty, because it can help us just to look at something and what's trying to happen here. But the reminder is to not stop there, is to go that extra step and feel for it in your heart through your devotion, through that openness of the heart, keeping it open. And it's interesting, the quality today is on willpower. The will can be subject to what? To our whims, right? To what the mind tells us. And of course, we know that that can be limiting. And here the reading this morning was reminding us to tune our will to what? To divine will, so that we can open ourselves up to that intuition. I want to start with a little story. One day, 3 men were trekking through a jungle when they came across a violent, raging river. They had no idea how to cross. So the first man decided to pray, "Please, God, give me the strength to cross this river." Immediately, he grew enormous muscles in his arms and legs, and he managed to swim across the river in a couple of hours, but nearly drowning a couple of times. The second man saw this, and he prayed, "Please, God, give me the strength and the tools to cross this river." A boat appeared from nowhere, and he battled across the river in an hour, almost nearly capsizing twice. The third man saw this, and he prayed, "Please, God, give me the strength and the tools and the intelligence to cross this river." Immediately, he turned into a woman. Sorry. She looked at the map, walked upstream 100 yards, and crossed over the bridge to the other side. Well, I think we better read what somebody else has to say about intuition. So this is a wonderful, really simple book. It's called Intuition for Starters, written by Swami Kriyananda. He was the founder of Ananda, direct disciple of Ananda. It's a wonderful book. Really simply, he just explains what tuition is, how do we cultivate it, how can we trust it, how do we know when it's not really intuition. I was thinking we could easily spend a 4-week series on this, if not a lifetime. Really, it's just a great book. But I want to read Swami Kriyananda's definition on intuition. He writes, "Intuition is the innate ability in everyone to perceive truth directly, not by reason, logic, or analysis, but by a simple knowing from within. That is the very meaning of the word intuition, to know or understand from within, from one's own self, and from the heart of whatever one is trying to understand. Intuition is the inner ability to see behind the outer forms of things to their inner essence." And so he puts it very, very simply. Ananda, Swami Kriyananda was the founder of Ananda, and Ananda wouldn't be here if Swami Kriyananda didn't follow his intuition. Next year, 2019, Ananda will be celebrating its 50th anniversary. So Ananda started in 1969 with Swami Kriyananda and just a handful. More came in the early 70s, but they had no money, they had no guidebook, they had no skills. But Swami followed his intuition, and then Ananda was born based on a principle that Yogananda brought when he came to America of building communities, world brotherhood colonies, he called them, where people could live together, live simply but with high thinking. There's one story that's told a lot through the history of Ananda is early days, Swami Kriyananda was sitting in a geodesic dome with a few of his followers. These were very early days. And he was talking about how Ananda was going to be this worldwide movement. And at the time, there they were in Northern California, up in the country, 2 hours away from the largest city, Sacramento, which probably wasn't as large back then, in 1969. And the roof was leaking, and they were looking around. There wasn't much there, and they were like, it's going to be a worldwide movement. But he had that intuition. He knew what it was going to become. In our reading this morning, very powerful reading, Christ asked his disciples a simple again but powerful question: who am I? Right? And he encouraged them to go inside to find the answer. Because he also said, by doing that, by our own effort, then we will know God. The definition for those of us who follow the teachings of Yogananda, He brought the teachings of self-realization. And the description Yogananda gave of self-realization is the knowing that in all parts of body, mind, and soul, that I am right now in the possession of the kingdom of God, that I need not pray that it comes to me, that God's omnipresence is mine, omnipresence, and all I need to do is improve my knowing. Why is it so hard to do? We forget that. How many lifetimes have we been living these lives and these tendencies, these habits, these thoughts, and we get caught in them. The Pope, he was on a lecture tour on the East Coast, so he was being driven around a lot in a limousine, and he had always wanted to know, what is it like to drive a limousine? So he asked the driver, he said, hey, can we switch places? And the driver felt like he had no choice but to say, well, sure, if the Pope wants to drive, I'll switch places. So there was the Pope behind the wheel. He was in the back. And the Pope takes it out for a drive, as you say, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a car person. But they were on a major interstate. And he starts to go faster and faster. He's going like 90 miles an hour. Sure enough, what happens? A trooper sees him, pulls him over, comes up to him, and when he sees who's at the front seat, when he sees who's behind the wheel, he says, can you just wait a second? I have to go make a phone call. So he goes and he calls his boss. He says, Chief, I just pulled somebody over for speeding, and I have a really important person in the car, and I don't know what to do. And the chief's, he's busy, he's a little impatient. He goes, well, who is it? Is it the governor? No, somebody more important. Is it the president? No, it's not the president. And then the trooper says, well, I don't know who it is, but he's got the Pope as his chauffeur, so he must be somebody really important. Remembering that reason can separate us. The books we read, the thoughts we have, it can... we always want to figure it out with the brain. I was remembering years ago, we moved up here in 2004, and I remember about a year before Swami Kriyananda called us. We were living at Ananda Village. Swami at the time was living at the village, and he said, Portland is ready for a change up here. We would love you and Daiva to go up there and take on this role of the directorship up here. And he said, well, what do you think? Go home, and let's meet in about a week. We talked a little bit more about it. He didn't have a lot of time. I went home for that week, and I was just approaching it from my brain. I was like, well, what do we do with the business that we had? What about the money? How are we going to make a living? What am I going to do with all of my belongings? And I was constantly like this. What are we going to do when we go up there? And it was all that. He called us back in a week, and Swami said, so what do you think? And I just said, sir, I have to be honest. I don't know what to think. I can't get there. I said, in my brain, I've just all these things going through my mind. I was just real honest with him. And he was so sweet. He didn't say, He said, you know what? He said, have you been to Portland? And I said, no. He said, oh, you haven't been to Portland? This is what you should do. You should go up there. Don't really tell anyone. Don't talk about why you're going up there. But I want you to go up there and feel what it would be like to be up there. And he said the magic words to me. He gave me permission to let the mind stop. And so we went up here, really just trying to be as open as possible from the heart. What would it feel like? Trying to intuit what would happen if we came up here. And obviously, we said yes. I was so grateful for that advice because I was stuck. I couldn't move forward. My will was so caught in all these things of the world that always keep us from what? From knowing spirit more deeply. How do we deepen our intuition? We all have that intuition. We all have that devotion. All of our hearts are open. We have all of that. The masters, they say, they are right here, right now. How do we improve that knowing? The Bible always says, be still and know. I know it's these simple 3 words, be still and know, 4 words. Such simple words, and we forget. Really, but it's by that deep and regular still meditation, that we remember who we are. Remembering to be like-minded people who remind us of this. The saints have this. They live in this consciousness all the time. And they still go through the things that we go through, the things of the world, the things that come, struggles with money, with this, with that, or whatever. There's stories of when Yogananda first came to America in the 1920s. He met his first disciple in Boston, Dr. Lewis. And, he must have been such a sight. When you read those early stories, here is a man coming to America in the early 20s, long hair, dark skin, dressed in these orange robes, and just speaking of these levels of consciousness and things that are not that common. And there's many that came to hear him lecture. And many walked away because if they just perceived, if they just tried to understand through the reasoning, through the mind, it wouldn't have stuck. But Dr. Lewis knew. He said, this is somebody that can help me with the spiritual experiences I'm having. Last week we talked about the time when Yogananda chanted at Carnegie Hall in New York City to just thousands of people. And he didn't even pick a simple chant. He picked, Oh God Beautiful, and how God is manifested through sympathy, through love, bowing before all. And so there were many who maybe were not touched if they were approaching it from the intellect. But also there's stories that many were healed. Many were deeply touched by that experience if they opened themselves up to that. I forgot to read this. These are, I think I will read them. It's a little out of line, but these are technology quotes. These are by, again, if we just stick to the reasoning, these are predictions, you could say, thoughts by different technology experts in the field. This is one that Diva quotes a lot. Someone from the U.S. Patent Office in 1899 quoted that everything that can be invented had been invented in 1899. Here's somebody who is a chairman of a large computer company, IBM. He said, I think there is a world market for maybe 5 computers. Someone else, a founder of a digital equipment corporation said, there is no reason anyone would want a computer in their home. That was just in 1977. Isn't that amazing? And then in 1949, someone said from Popular Mechanics, computers in the future may weigh no more than 1.5 tons. Oh, this is a good one. This is 1876 by Western Union. It was an internal memo. It said, this telephone, in quotes, has too many shortcomings to be seriously considered as a means of communication. The device is inherently of no value to us. Isn't that fun? And then, of course, many of us have heard this from Warner Brothers in 1927. Who wants to hear actors talk? Aren't they cute? It's called Astute Visionaries. Had to share that. But again, it's not about throwing, it's just not about throwing out that reasoning. I know I've mentioned that, but it's important. Everything. We don't throw everything out. Everything is part of yoga. Yoga is simply union with God. Yoga is about becoming who we are. Again, the masters remind us we're pure love, joy, spirit, peace. And they remind us. The saints come back and remind us of that. In thinking of the first time you may have done, if you've done hatha yoga, the physical aspect, the physical branch of yoga, you may have not been able to stretch all the way, right? So what the instructor may have taught you to do is how to breathe, how to gradually go into that stretch. Same thing with who we are too, because it is hard. We have these tendencies, we have these habits, and we don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We're here. Just remembering to be patient with ourselves, patience, and just baby steps. And keep taking that next step. Keep making that meditation. If you are a meditator, make that meditation deeper than the last. If you don't meditate, learn how to meditate. Come to one of these classes. Whatever you're doing, see if you can take your practice a little bit deeper to further deepen that intuition, your intuition, the knowing, Come, being around people. Again, the saints have this. They hang out in that consciousness. if we're not able to hang out in that consciousness, let's go hang out with others who are also trying to do that. Or if not, read the lives of the saints. Sister Gangamata was quoted as saying she wrote a lot of letters to Yogananda and to other disciples who were struggling or had questions. She wrote a beautiful book called God Alone. I highly recommend it. But in one of her letters she wrote to Yogananda, she said, "I was thinking of you today, but when do I think of anything else?" I mean, wow, her consciousness always right there, but we could be there. He was always in her mind. Yogananda, as a manifestation of Spirit of God, was always there. Yogananda also said the scientist investigates the atom objectively. The yogi becomes the atom. So let's live the teachings. Let's dive deep in our teachings together. Know that the masters are here, guiding us, supporting us. As Christ asked Peter, "Who am I?" As we feel the masters asking us, "Who am I?" let's see if we could feel that answer, that we are one with them, that we are love, we are joy. And let's have fun in this journey together. Don't feel sad. I don't know if I feel sadness, but it's just, there's just, it's worth the effort. No saint who ever went there came back and said, I don't think it was worth it. Really, joy is the essence of the path. The masters came and brought these great teachings of self-realization again. They brought the tools to us because they want us to do this. They want us to discover that. And they said they'll just keep waiting. Yogananda's promised to us, he'll keep waiting till the last one is waiting. Just keep coming back for us. So we have the masters supporting us. We have each other. God bless us all for sharing this journey together. Thank you all for everything you do. There's no bit part in any community. And for your love, your efforts, and many blessings on your journey to self-realization. Yeah.
You can join me. I have a love who's far away, far away, far away. I have a love who's far away, farther away than the stars. Mother, you've stolen my heart away, heart away, heart away. Mother, you've stolen my heart away, farther away than the stars. Keep me not bound here, teach me to fly, far from earth's madness, free ere I die. Keep me not bound, Ma, teach me to fly, farther away than the stars. There's nothing here nearly so dear, nearly so dear, nearly so dear. Mother, I know your love's ever near, though farther away than the stars. Mother, I know your love's ever